Morning came to the prince's estate, and numerous servants and courtiers awoke and prepared for work. One of the servants standing in the courtyard was recovering from the night before and getting ready for work. Then the servant suddenly saw something that caught his attention very much. He noticed a chicken leg lying on the ground in the yard. He was very surprised. The servant girl was also very much surprised. She asked in wonder why there was a chicken leg lying there. At this time, the fox's invisibility mode went off. Because of this, everyone could see it. The servants noticed the sitting fox and mistook it for a big fat cat. The fox thought resentfully to herself that she was not a cat, but a fox. One of the servants told the other that they had to get the cat right away. If the prince finds the cat in the residence, he'll skin them. The servants prepared to catch the cat. They took sticks and ropes for this purpose. The servants chased after the cat. The fox realized she had to escape. The fox dodged the attacks of the servants. She thought to herself that normal people wouldn't want to go and catch such a cute fox. Lisa didn't understand why everyone hated her, even though she was just a young girl. She had just passed her last exam at school and was suddenly here. The fox hid behind the wall. The servants couldn't understand where she had gone since they had seen her only a few seconds before. It was a shame to the girl that she had turned into such a fat fox that you couldn't even see her neck. Then the fox suddenly heard shouts for everyone to run away to the sides. The fox was frightened as a big cart with various food was coming at her. After that, the vixen thought to herself that she had to fight for her life on a daily basis. The fox got to the kitchen in the prince's estate. There was a lot of delicious food for her. The fox rejoiced greatly as she made her way into His Highness's kitchen simply by following the cart. The fox climbed up on the table. She remembered that the steward had said the prince didn't eat savory or sweet dishes. The girl in the kitchen said that the manager is completely unreliable. They would lose their heads if they made a mistake. The fox was surprised that a girl could die because of an improperly prepared dish. The fox pictured Prince Chen as extremely vicious and cruel. The fox thought to herself that the prince probably had a very bad temper. In the end, the fox decided not to run away and just eat himself to death in the kitchen. After a good lunch, the fox was resting. She was fed up and had nowhere to rush. After that, the fox went out for a walk. She walked through the meadow. It was good for her to be herself. After that, the animal took a leisurely walk around the prince's estate. Here, the fox sensed for herself a strong scent of spiritual energy from outside. Walking through the prince's estate, she came to a large gazebo in the center. At that time, a tall young boy was walking around the estate. The fox noticed him. The fox thought that this guy's spiritual energy was very intense. At that time, the guy commanded his servant to send more spies to the place. Something caught the guy's attention. He noticed the fox approaching him from the side. The lad and his servant were surprised. The fox suddenly rushed to his leg. Lisa felt a great spiritual energy coming from the guy, and it felt good. The fox was lying near the guy's leg. She felt spiritual energy and a pleasant aura from him. The boy asked the servant when it was that such a large cat had appeared in his residence. The servant addressed the fellow as His Highness and said it was not a cat but a fox. The fox was very surprised to hear such an address as Your Highness. After that, the fox was very frightened. She realized that she was in more trouble. After that, the guy decided to take a close look at the fox, and he picked it up. The boys wondered if a fox could be so fat and where its neck was. Lisa didn't like those words. She thought she was not fat and thought she had a perfect figure. After that, the guy threw it at the fox to his servant. He said the animal was useless. He ordered the servant to kill the fox unless he found something unusual about its origin. The servant caught the fox and took her in his arms. She did not like the prince's words. The fox angrily thought she'd had enough. She decided to go after the guy first. The fox accelerated and rushed at full speed at the guy she wanted to claw into his arm. The prince grabbed the fox. He looked at her with surprise. She didn't like the way he grabbed her by the scruff of the neck. The guy stroked the fox and said she looked very angry. It looked like she understood what he was saying. The servant told the prince that if the fox is so smart, it could be from the clan of divine foxes. The prince was very interested. He couldn't believe that the fox in his hands was from the divine clan. The guy at this time gently stroked the fox, and she didn't like it and got angry. The prince ordered the servant to bring him the fox, but first he washed it. The fox was happy. She realized she wasn't going to die. The servant carried the fox in his arms and told it not to be afraid. He said she was the first animal to survive an encounter with His Highness. The servant told the fox that His Highness liked her very much. She could count on his protection in the future. Foxy thought it was no good liking such a heartless man. She thought at least she could eat chicken feet whenever she wanted. The fox sat in the servant's arms and realized that it wasn't that bad. She would be able to absorb spiritual energy without any problems. She would have to get better to regain her human form. A servant met a girl on the way. She addressed him and called him Mr. Qingyi. The girl asked Qingyi's servant if he had called her to serve His Highness. The servant told the girl that the prince had recently picked up this fox. He told the girl to give it a bath. The girl looked at the animal for a very long time, and the fox even became concerned because of it. The fox was frightened. She didn't understand why the girl was staring at her like that. She must have pissed her off. A servant named Qingyi wanted to give the girl a fox and told her to take care of it. The fox began to shriek unhappily and tear herself out of the servant's arms. She did not want to stay with the girl. The girl stretched out her hands and wanted to take the fox for herself. The animal clung to Qingyi with all its might. The servant handed the fox to the girl. She continued to resist desperately. Qingyi told the girl that she could go back. She didn't like the vixen. The maid said grudgingly that she already didn't want to serve this rotten fox of unknown origin. The servant told the girl that she was really smart. She immediately realized that she would have a hard time getting along with the fox. Fox thought that according to a woman's intuition, one should always be on guard. Qingyi's servant heard another servant girl come up behind him and asked him to give her a fox. Qingyi called the girl named Jui and said he was very glad she had come back. Jui told him that she had been sent here by the prince. Qingyi interjected, surprised at Jui whether his highness had personally asked her to come here. The guy said that apparently there is now another creature in residence that no one can hurt now. Jui told the fox that she would take care of her starting today. The fox sitting in the girl's arms thought her hug was very comfortable. The maid thought that this fox really did have a divine mind. Qingyi watched as the girl walked away with the fox. He noticed that Jui actually smiled at the little fox. Night descended on the residence of the prince. He did not sleep but continued his work. His highness continued to work on the documents during the night. His servant Qingyi came to the study room. The prince asked the servant what was wrong with the fox. Qingyi replied that he was putting the fox in the care of a maid named Jui. The servant thought to himself that it was the first time he had ever seen a prince care for anything so much. The prince asked the servant if he had any proof that the fox was divine. Qingyi said that although the fox does not look different from its other relatives, the pattern on the fox's tail is unique. It coincides with the description of divine faces in ancient chronicles. The fox felt good. She was relaxed after taking a bath. Jui held her in her arms. Jui told the prince that the little fox had already been washed. The little fox felt as if she was going to be eaten. The prince came over. He called the fox Chubby and told her to come to him. The vixen tried to telepathically send a message to the prince. She asked if she should go to him just because he told her to. The prince received a telepathic message. He asked the vixen why she chose to act arrogant with him. Does she really want to die so badly? The fox sat in the prince's arms and told him mentally that he was very rude. The fox sat in the prince's arms completely calm and peaceful. The prince also liked the animal. He saw that his fox understood him well. Litsa wanted to climb onto the prince's shoulder. She felt a more intense spiritual energy near his head. The vixen began to climb up the prince's clothes up his shoulder. She could feel the spiritual energy. Eventually, the fox was able to climb onto the prince's shoulder. She felt in that place that the spiritual energy was much fresher. The fox sat silently on the prince's head. He commanded her to get off. The fox noticed that the prince was angry with her and decided to run away from him. He held her in his arms. Then the maids came in and told the prince it was time for him to dine. The fox was glad. She noticed that the maids had brought a chicken leg on a plate. The prince told the fox that there were no chicken legs for her. The fox was upset and felt that the prince was completely heartless. The prince asked the fox what right she had to say bad words about him. The fox was surprised that he understood her telepathically. Maid Jui told the prince that the little vixen hadn't eaten anything yet since she got here. The fox looked at the prince and told him telepathically that she was so hungry that her ribs could be seen. The prince put the fox on the table and told him he could eat that cold chicken leg. The prince, along with the fox, began consuming the rescheduled lunch with gusto. The prince wiped the fox's face and told it to watch itself as it might get dirty while eating. The servants watched the prince's behavior. They decided they needed to pay more attention to the fox. At the same time, a kettle of green tea boiled. The prince finished his lunch and took it into the forest with him. The boy was busy doing his own thing. The fox sat next to him on the table and slept through the afternoon. While sleeping, the fox felt an epiphany. She began to remember her past. The fox felt like she was back in the girl's body. The fox remembered her parents. She saw them and wanted to call them. She used to be in a girl's body, and she wanted to reach out to her mom again and tell her she was here. The girl recalled how, after the accident, it was as if she had flown above the bed in the hospital. It was as if the girl could see herself on the bed and her parents beside her. Through the dream, the fox heard the prince's voice. He was telling her not to cry. Very sadly, the fox thought to herself that she missed her parents. The prince wondered if someone had just called someone daddy. Lisa thought she should go home. She can't let her parents grow old alone. She needs to find a way to be a better person. The prince stroked the fox's neck, and it felt so good and pleasant. The fox said telepathically for the prince not to touch her as she was thinking about important things. The fox looked angrily at the prince. At that moment, a servant came in and said that General Ling Yuan had arrived. The prince told the maid to give the fox a bath. If she doesn't obey, he won't give her chicken feet. Such words made the fox angry. Maid Jue was standing nearby. She took the fox in her arms. The prince watched the maid as she carried the fox in her arms out of the room. Then the prince asked the incoming general Ling Yuan how he was able to return. He thought he had died on the battlefield. Ling Yuan told the prince that he had just crossed the threshold and he already wanted to jinx him. Maid Jue asked the foxy woman if it wanted to know who Lin Ayun was. Jue told the fox that Ling Yuan is a great general. He was going off to war together with the prince. After that, the prince returned to the courtyard to become a reagent. General Ling Yuan stayed at the border to protect the country from enemies. The prince asked the general if he had brought a couple of books and a dish of enemies' eyeballs. Earlier, General Ling Yuan had made an appetizer of the enemies' eyeballs and presented it to the king. General Ling Yuan was very much surprised that the prince had also heard about it. The prince said that the general even signed his gift from Prince Chung. General Ling Yuan told the prince that he thought the one never liked their king. The prince drew his sword and presented it to the general's neck. He said there would be no next time. General Ling Yuan then asked the prince where his pet had gone. He came here to see him. General Lin was running around the room looking for the fox. He said he came here to see her. At this time, the general stopped and heard the prince's angry response from behind. The prince sternly asked the general if he was not interested in the defense of borders, but was interested in his fox. The general thought to himself that he only wanted to see the pet and why the prince was so angry. The general answered aloud that everything was calm on the borders. The prince calmed down a little. He picked up his calligraphy brush. After that, the prince told the general to be more careful with Zhang Li. He could deal with him if he needed to. General Li asked with interest the prince if he had any suspicions. The prince said that Zhang Li's stepmother is a southern woman from the Xinjiang family. In his opinion, this is suspicious. General Li promised that he would immediately send someone to find out about Zhang Li. The prince told the general that if he messed up, he could just go and die for the sake of the motherland. The general replied that the prince should not worry as he would not die so easily. Maid Jui came in. She told the prince that the fox had been thoroughly washed. The prince called the forest a crybaby and told her to go to him. General Lin was standing nearby. The fox climbed up on the table. She thought there was nothing wrong with being a crybaby. General Lin looked at the fox and said it was very cute. The fox liked that. The general reached out his hand and wanted to take her in his arms. The prince told the animal that if she got dirty again, she would have to be washed. The fox didn't want to be tackled by General Lin. She jumped to the side. The fox sat on the opposite side of the table. The prince looked at her happily. The prince called the fox a crybaby and told her to look at his painting. The fox looked at the drawing. She saw herself there fully life-sized. The fox was very surprised. She asked telepathically to the prince if he had drawn her. General Lin said the fox in the painting was good. It looks 90% like the real one. The prince and the fox were very surprised at such words. The two of them looked at the general with a questioning look. The general pointed to the picture and said that the fox should have a star-shaped birthmark on his ear. The prince forgot to draw it. The prince looked carefully at the fox's ear. There was indeed a birthmark there. The prince told Maid Jui to bring Qingui here. She said she'd do it right away. A servant named Qingui came in. He studied the birthmark on the fox's ear very carefully. Qin said that this birthmark is the mark of the Fox clan and means spiritual power. The fox thought it was a good thing these people knew nothing about her kind of animal. The birthmark means a symbol of royalty. The animal was lying on the table. She thought to herself that it wasn't easy being a fox. The prince looked long and carefully at the fox. He realized that it was no ordinary animal. The fox looked at the prince and didn't understand why his eyes were so deep and mysterious. She looked at his lips and wondered why they were so seductive to her. The fox thought that the prince must have a very nice and beautiful body. Lisa thought this guy was pretty perfect for her. If he was from her time, he would definitely be someone popular. At this time, the prince tapped the heavily bemused fox on the head with his wand. The prince told the fox she was a pervert. He asked her if she'd seen enough. The fox thought the guy was really mean. He was born for others to look up to him. The prince told the fox she was divine. Too bad she's a greedy glutton and a pervert. The fox looked angrily at the prince and said mentally that he himself was a pervert and a glutton. At that moment, the fox was distracted and smelled something very delicious. The maids came. They brought food on trays and told the prince that the food was served. The fox ran up to the maids very happily. She thought she was going to get a chicken leg. The prince told the fox that she's a very strong glutton. No wonder she's so fat. The fox got very angry. She shouted to the prince telepathically, "That isn't she fat?" At this time, the prince almost stepped on the fox. She did not notice his foot above her head. The boy looked menacingly at the fox. He was annoyed that it had gotten in his way. The prince reached out and decided to grab the fox. She couldn't escape. The prince called the fox a pig and said it couldn't even move so it wouldn't get squashed. The fox was very upset about this nickname and didn't understand why everyone called her a pig. The prince held the fox in his arms and told his maids that they could go now. Lisa thought to herself that she might really be fat as a pig. She imagined that she would come home and her parents wouldn't recognize her when the prince put some chicken legs in front of the fox. He told the fox to eat them. The fox looked at the treats and thought she shouldn't eat. She should go on a diet right away. The prince once again told the fox to eat. She noticed a murderous aura around him. The beast realized that her only option was to submit to evil. Eventually, the fox ate it all. She realized that she still had many days to go before she could go on a diet. The prince told the fox that she was very dirty and suggested that she go and bathe with him. They came to a big pool. The fox was slowly pacing near the pool. Suddenly, her paws slipped. The fox fell into the pool. She went deep into the pool and could not come up. The fox began to sink in the water. She was frightened because she could not swim and went to the bottom. She thought to herself that it was all over for her, and she would die in the body of a fat fox. At the same time, the prince reached out to her and rescued her from the deep water. The rescued fox touched the guy's chest with his paw and wondered what it was that was so warm and nice to the touch. The prince asked a very rude fox if she was tired of touching him. The prince told the fox sternly that if she gave him any more trouble, he would drown her. The boy placed the fox on a small tray of delicious food. She noticed that the prince was not wearing any clothes at all. The fox furtively looked at the prince and noticed that he had 6 dice pumped up on his abs. The prince looked at the fox in amazement. He completely understood everything she was thinking. Just then the guy called out to the fox and pulled up the tray she was on. The prince took the animal in his arms and said he would help her wash today. The fox was very much and unpleasantly surprised to hear such words from the prince. The prince started bathing the fox. She thought it couldn't be real. The fox felt that everything going on was very disconcerting to her. The prince asked the fox why her body was getting hotter and hotter. She tried to pull out of his arms. The fox jumped into the water and said that her body was getting hotter since she was still an innocent virgin. The fox very quickly swam away across the pool from the guy to the side of the pool. The guy wondered to himself if that perverted fox still knew how to embarrass himself. The fox climbed out of the pool and thought she couldn't make eye contact with the handsome guys as her blood pressure might get out of control. A maid arrived and the prince ordered her to take this fox and dry it. The prince thought to himself that this was the first time he had ever serviced someone, and the perverted fox dared to refuse him. The maid told the fox that she was very obedient. This is the first time the prince has allowed someone in his room. Fox was surprised at such words. She couldn't believe that the prince wanted her to serve him in bed. The prince grabbed the fox and carried her to his room. She didn't resist. The beastie didn't want to sleep in the same room as the prince. She began to desperately lash out. The fox started pounding on the door with her paws. She was calling for Maid Jue. The fox wanted to tell the girl that she didn't want to serve the prince in bed and to get her out of here. Lisa banged her head hopelessly against the door. She realized that she would lose the innocence she had cherished for 18 years. The fox realized that she had to find a way to get out of here and started looking around. Just then, something caught her attention very much. She noticed a very beautiful and expensive vase with a decoration on the neck. The fox kept staring at the jewelry on the jug. She was very much attracted to it. The fox thought that in her world this vase could be sold for at least 10,000. The beast decided that if she was going to bore the prince, she certainly wouldn't starve to death. She knocked over the vase and tried to break off a piece of jewelry. Suddenly, the fox's feet slipped off the jug. It began to fall. The fox was falling down. She didn't even have a chance to grab onto anything. The prince was just in time. He grabbed the fox in his arms. The animal was saved. The boy held the vixen very carefully in his arms. He thought that he should have turned his back for a second, and the animal was already in something. The fox looked at the prince very sorrowfully and asked him mentally for forgiveness. The guy held the fox in his arms. She thought to herself that since he always rescues her, it means he's not so disgusting. The prince was thinking, and at that time he heard a knock on the door. He commanded them to come in. The maid said that the little fox's bed was ready. The little fox was alarmed. The prince asked the vixen what had happened to her and why she was not happy. Beastie thought she didn't want a small bed, and she rushed to the center of the feather bed. The prince said the fox had good taste and could sleep here beside him. The fox was very upset. She did not like such words from the prince. The vixen angrily shouted to the prince that she didn't want to sleep with him here next to him on his feather bed. The animal thought she wanted to sleep alone on that bed. The guy put out the candle. The vixen curled up quietly and began to fall asleep. She felt warm and good. The fox fell asleep and snuggled up to the prince, and it was good and pleasant for her to sleep beside him. The little fox had a good night's sleep. Early the next morning, she woke up. The fox felt very cozy. She stretched out relaxedly on the feather bed. Suddenly, one of the maids came up. She shouted at the fox for daring to lie on His Highness's bed. The vixen was frightened. She shouted a thunderous scream, calling for the Jui girl. The fox told the telepathic maid that it was the prince who made her sleep here. The maid wanted to kill the animal. The fox was very much frightened by such words from the maid. She began to scream. At that moment, the prince woke up and he rising hit the maid who was standing by the bed. The maid fell to the ground. She asked menacingly who dared to push her. The fox jumped into the prince's arms. He told the maid very threateningly that she had done a great impudence. The girl bowed to the prince and said she deserved to die. She didn't know it was him. The maid pointed her finger at the fox and said it was the fox's fault. It was the fox who climbed up on the prince's bed. Chen told the girl menacingly that it wasn't up to her to decide who could and couldn't get on the bed. He said that from now on she would not be allowed to enter his room. The maid thanked the prince for his mercy. She ran out of his room. The girl angrily thought that she would get revenge on the fox for everything that had just happened. It was lunchtime. Foxy was still asleep in the prince's room in the palace. The prince asked the vixen if she was hungry. He told her that she really looked like a pig because she had been sleeping for a long time. The fox told the prince not to call a pig a pig. No pig could be as nice as she was. The guy petted the vixen, holding her in his arms, and told them to go eat now. A maid came by. She said that the Minister of Education was waiting for him and wanted to meet him. The prince thought about his little fox. He decided to give it to the maid. The boy stroked the fox goodbye and told the maid to wash and feed the fox. The maid said she would do everything. Lisa thought it was very tiring to be a prince, and he didn't even have time to eat. The maid told the vixen that the prince was very busy, but he remembered to order her to be fed. That means he cares for her very much. The girl told the vixen to be more obedient in the future. Foxy thought to herself that she was very full and wanted to go for a walk. Foxy thought that the food at the residence was very good, and if she had to leave this place one day, she would miss it. The maid asked the vixen if she wanted to take a walk in His Highness's garden. The fox went into the garden. She liked it very much and was surrounded by beautiful plants and flowers. The maid shouted to the vixen not to go far and she would wait for her here. The fox ran and jumped around the flowers. It was like a fairy tale to her. Foxy thought she might take some flowers for the prince. She wanted to thank him for taking her in and feeding her. The little critter was running around and studying the flowers, and some flower seemed very girly to her and another very strange. Suddenly, the fox saw a mysterious black flower near a large rock. The little fox looked at the flower for a very long time. She could not understand what kind of plant it was. The fox continued to walk around the prince's garden. She walked around a black flower she saw. The vixen sniffed the flower. It smelled like a dahlia to her. The animal thought to himself that the flower was dark, so it would be perfect for the prince. The prince at this time was working. He felt that probably someone was now speaking ill of the king. Foxy plucked the second pink flower. She wanted to give it to Mei Jue as a thank you for her work. The animal was walking and holding some flowers in her teeth. Then she smelled a foreign odor from outside. The fox approached the gazebo. She realized she could smell the goodies coming from there. Foxy looked with great attention at the cookies lying in the gazebo on a platter. The fox looked around very carefully. She decided to take one cookie for herself. The little fox started to eat a cookie. She thought to herself that if she ate one, she wouldn't get caught. Suddenly, the fox saw several maids coming from the side, heading towards the gazebo. One of the maids said she had to hurry to take the sweets to Mr. Wan Ye. Another girl told her to hurry, or they would get cold soon. The little fox felt bad. She decided to hide from the girls. The maid came over and noticed that one cookie was missing. The fox hid under the table. The animal realized it had been discovered. It decided to flee. The vixen was very fat, so she couldn't hold onto the rock and slid down. The fox plopped down on the ground, and the maids immediately noticed it because of that. One of the maids looked at the vixen very menacingly and with great hatred. The animal got scared. It realized that it had been spotted and needed to run away. The maid grabbed the vixen. She was frightened and immediately thought she was finished. One of the maids said it was the fox who was close to the prince. She wondered why it was here. The other girl turned to the maid who was holding the fox and called her Xiao Kui and suggested that you let the animal go. Xiao Kui squeezed the fox with all her might. The maid told the fox that she had served Wang Fu a lot, but had never seen him so angry. Then, Xiao Kui asked the girls that if the fox is very precious to the prince, then why is she now here? The maids agreed with Xiao Kui that the fox was most likely very spoiled. The vixen kept calling for Jue's girlfriend to come and save her. Xiao Kui told the girls that because of the fox, they might be transferred away from the prince very soon. She herself had already been assigned to another place. One of the maids said that in that case, the fox should die. The other was afraid that someone might find out about it. Xiao Kui, holding the fox, said that animals can't talk. No one will know the fox is going to die. The fox begged loudly to herself for someone to save her. She felt she was in mortal danger. The vixen continued to scream fearfully. In the distance, Mei Jue heard her. At this time, Xiao Kui squeezed the vixen hard. She shouted for it to stop squeaking. Jue walked over and yelled at the girls to stop and asked what they were doing. The maids bowed and greeted Lady Jue, and she headed towards the vixen. Jue approached the vixen and asked the maids strictly what they were doing here. One of the girls said that they thought the fox was very cute, so they wanted to pet it. Another maid said they didn't expect the fox to squeal. Fox was already sitting in Jue's arms. She thought to herself that she was screaming because the maids were bullying her. Joy told the maids very strictly that if they ever touched the fox again, they would have to leave the mansion. The maids all said together amicably and fearfully that they understood. Girl Joy brought the fox into the bedroom. She told him to rest there. The vixen squealed pitifully after Joy when she wanted to leave her. Foxy pulled out a small pink flower that she had hidden in her coat. Girl Joy was very surprised. She asked the vixen if she would give this flower to her. The girl took the flower and thanked the beastie. She was very pleased. After saying that, Maid Joy turned around and left the room. Fox was left alone. Foxy thought she would never forget what Zhao Kui had done to her. She thought that when she was stronger, she would get revenge. Night descended on the palace. At that time, the prince returned to his room. The prince went up to the vixen and called her a pig. He said she was a very sound sleeper. The prince told the animal to wake up and come with him. The little fox squeaked softly. The prince decided to pet the fox. Then he noticed something unusual on its body. The boy saw large and fresh wounds on the beast's body. He was very surprised. The prince asked the vixen what happened and where the wounds came from. The fox squeaked pitifully. She wanted to tell him right now that the maids had attacked her. Foxy thought she could handle the maids herself later. Otherwise, they would look down on her. After thinking for a while, the prince called out his servant Chingui. He came over and greeted the prince. The prince ordered the servant to fetch the doctor. The servant also had to find out who the fox had met today. The prince thought to himself he couldn't understand who dared to touch his belongings on his property. Dr. Li arrived at the palace to see the prince. He said he had brought with him an ointment of 100 herbs. Dr. Li said the chanterelle's wounds aren't very deep, and she'll be much better in 3 days. The prince took the vial of medicine in disbelief and asked the doctor if it would be necessary to use only this medicine. Dr. Li bowed to the prince and said that only his ointment would need to be used. After a little thought, the prince waved Dr. Li to leave quickly. Dr. Li happily ran off. He wasn't a veterinarian, and he was lucky the chanterelle's wounds were shallow. The guy smeared healing ointment on the chanterelle's body. She continued to squeak loudly. The prince held the fox on his lap and commanded it not to move. The prince told the vixen to be patient a little longer. All he had to do was dab it on her tail. The boy put the ointment on the animal's tail. The fox endured in silence. She knew she had to wait a little longer. The vixen lay silently and endured. She liked the prince's attention. The boy scrutinized the fox's tail. He noticed something interesting. The vixen was pleased. She lay there and squeaked softly and quite peacefully. The prince looked carefully at the animal and was very curious. He wondered what might have happened to it today. After that, the guy placed the vial of ointment on the table. He finished the process of smearing. The guy was holding a foxy little fox in his arms. He told her she was his pet. If anyone wanted to hurt her, she had to tell him. Fox thought angrily that she couldn't be considered a girl if she couldn't fend for herself. The prince rubbed the fox's cheek and asked if she didn't want him to help her. The vixen squeaked pitifully. She decided that she was a beautiful girl from the 21st century and couldn't ask a guy for help. The prince said he'd wait and see how the vixen handled things. After that, the prince came to the study room. Chin-gui's servant came to him. He told him that he had found out everything. After that, Chin began to recount everything that had happened in detail. The servant asked the prince if he wanted him to teach the maids a lesson. After a little thought, the prince told the servant that it was probably not necessary. The prince instructed the servant to watch the fox if it hurt itself again. Chin would be punished for it. The prince thought to himself that the fox himself wanted revenge and not to hide behind a stone wall. After that, the prince decided that he would let the vixen create chaos. He can't help her whenever she needs it. The vixen sat and felt a strong and magical aura rise around her. The fox thought to herself that she needed to get stronger. She would make everyone who hurt her feel sorry for her. In the evening, Xiao Kui came to the prince's kitchen. She wanted to make sure no one was there. Xiao Kui looked around. She was a little scared. The girl was looking for some leftover food. Xiao Kui thought that the cook took the leftovers with him again and went home. At that time, a huge spoon fell to the floor. There was a very strong ringing sound. Xiao Kui was very much frightened. She turned around and shouted to see who was here. Suddenly, a stone fell on the girl from behind, and she was very frightened because of it. The girl shouted to the unseen enemy that here would be very much regretted if she didn't show herself right now. Xiao Kui was hit by stones from all directions. She couldn't understand why there were so many stones in the kitchen. Eventually, the girl decided that something was wrong with this kitchen. She headed for the door. Xiao Kui met her girlfriends near the entrance. They asked her what had happened to her and why she was making noise. Then suddenly the door closed. All the girls were very frightened. Xiao Kui started pounding on the door with all her might. She shouted for them to be rescued because there were ghosts in the kitchen. On the shelf at this time did a vixen. It was she who was throwing stones at the girls. The animal didn't understand why the door closed on its own. After a little thought, the vixen happily decided that heaven was now on her side. The girls in the kitchen all looked up together. They saw nothing suspicious up there. The girls then put bowler hats on their heads to protect them from the pebbles. After that, Xiao Chu slipped and fell to the floor with the rest of the girls. Foxy was very surprised. She didn't understand why the girls had fallen. The fox commanded telepathically Xiao Chu to right now slap herself in the face. The girl did so. The beast then commanded the girl to hit herself again. The servant girl kept hitting her face. Foxy thought to herself that the self-improvement had been successful. Now she could control her spiritual energy. The beast thought her new spiritual level gave her new opportunities. The girls in the kitchen continued to beat themselves. The screams could be heard far away. After that, the vixen's invisibility mode turned off. Xiao Kui angrily shouted to the fox that it was her. Lissa mentally told the girls that this happened to them because they were bullying her. She also thought that she was stronger because of the prince's aura. She decided that she should thank him. Late in the evening, the fox brought the prince a black flower that she had plucked earlier. The boy was surprised by this gift. The vixen told the prince that she plucked this flower especially for him a couple days ago. The prince was very upset. He asked the vixen if she thought he was heartless. The prince angrily asked the vixen if she meant to say that he was heartless. She replied that she didn't mean that. After waiting a bit, the prince calmed down. He held the animal in his arms and looked at it with a kinder gaze. The guy told the vixen that she probably doesn't know what kind of flower she brought, so there's no point in fighting with her about it. The fox replied to him that she had brought him a present and didn't understand why he wanted to fight over it. Vixen said that men are hard to please because they have brains like chickens. The prince replied that she was saying bad things again. The brute wondered if the guy could read her mind so accurately. Chen tapped her ear and said that her face was so expressive that it wasn't hard at all to figure out what she was thinking. After that, the fox tried to put on an emotionless appearance. She told the prince not to talk nonsense. The guy looked at the vixen and said that she's very smart. He suspects she's not even a fox at all. The animal was scared. She thought the prince might think she was a monster and kill her. The fox eventually decided that it was past time for her to run away. She jumped to the side. The prince asked the fox how she wanted to escape if she had short legs. The animal begged the prince not to kill it. The guy cradled the vixen against him. He said he never even thought of killing her. The fox looked at the man and decided to send a telepathic signal to the prince. The prince told the fox that he didn't care if she was a demon or a divine fox. If she lives on the estate, she belongs to him. The vixen was silent. She decided that the prince was saying very sweet words to her. The boy was examining the vixen. He noticed another new mark on her body. The animal noticed the man looking at her intently. She asked if she had more tags on her. Chen remembered the words of the servant who said that the tags showed the spiritual power of the fox. The prince was scrutinizing the animal. She didn't understand why he was staring at it like that. The next day, the fox came out to walk in the park. She was with the maid Jui. The little fox stomped her paws on the path and felt that she couldn't run fast enough. The vixen concentrated. She realized that she needed to lengthen her legs, and to do that she needed to go on a diet and lose fat. Maid Jui shouted that the fox was running so fast that she was out of breath. She told her to get up. Vixen looked at the maid and answered her mentally that she didn't need to stop. The animal noticed something interesting. She decided to run to the side. The maid asked the vixen fearfully and excitedly where she was running to. The fox ran up to the stone in the garden. She felt that the spiritual energy here was very intense. Here the vixen felt a great weakness. She did not understand why this was happening to her. Before the beastie knew it, she had fallen into a deep and long sleep. Above Prince Chen's residence, morning came. The fox had slept in the garden all this time. The fox woke up with great difficulty. She had spent the whole night by the rock. Waking up, the beast thought how she could have fallen asleep here. She had only slept in the palace before. The fox looked at the rock and at the tree that stood next to it. She felt that it was very comfortable to sleep here. She thought that Mei Jue had brought her to a very good place. The vixen was startled. She realized that she had completely forgotten about Jue. At this time, the prince in the palace sternly reprimanded the maid. He told the girl that she is absolutely useless and cannot even normally keep track of the fox. The maid fell to her knees and begged the prince for another chance. She promised to find the fox and deliver it. She realized to herself that she had to find the fox as soon as possible. Servant Qingyi asked the prince to give maid Jue another chance. The prince said sternly that the maid had failed in her duties. He ordered the servants to have her beheaded. At that time, the prince heard the familiar squeaking of the fox. She was somewhere near him. Qingyi's servant and Zhang's maid were very surprised and delighted by the appearance of the fox. The fox told the prince telepathically that she had run away by herself, and there was no need to punish Jue for it. The prince petted the animal and said it was his pet. He wouldn't let it run away. The prince took the fox in his arms and said that he would punish everyone who was in any way connected with her if she ran away. The fox told him that she had not run away. Qingyi's servant told the prince that after the vixen returned, he didn't need to punish Jue now. The prince replied to the servant that his request alone would not suffice for a pardon. The vixen sat in the boy's arms and thought. She decided that she should calm down and not quarrel with the prince. The prince sensed from the vixen her telepathic requests directed to him. Beast asked the prince to let the maid Jui go and not be punished in any way. The prince looked at his servants and said to Qingyi and Jui to return first. The servants were overjoyed at the prince's decision. They realized that they were saved. Jui and Qingyi dropped to their knees and bowed to the prince. They thanked him for his kindness. When the servants left, the prince asked the vixen where she had been this afternoon. He was still holding her in his arms. The boy asked the animal with interest if it had been in the yard. She pointed to the garden with her paw. Then the prince noticed that the markings on the beast's body had gotten even darker. The boy decided to take another look at the vixen. He reached out his hand to her to transfer spiritual energy. The prince touched the fox. She felt a great spiritual energy coming from him. The beast looked at the prince in surprise. She didn't understand why he was transferring spiritual energy to her. The boy looked at the fox carefully. He decided that if the spiritual energy became even more intense, he wanted to know what would happen then. The prince stroked the vixen in his arms and transferred his spiritual energy to her. The fox asked the man why he would risk his life and transfer his spiritual energy to her. Is he an idiot? The prince asked sternly mentally to the beastie why she dared to call him an idiot. Vixen once again marveled that the prince could fully hear her telepathically. The prince said that he could not only hear the vixen but also talk to her thanks to his divine consciousness. The animal was very surprised to hear such words from a human. It was very much amazed. Lisa realized that in the future, she too would be able to communicate with the prince thanks to her divine consciousness. And she would no longer need to talk to herself. The prince stroked the fox's cheek and said that he would now know exactly when she was going to say mean things about him. Vixen asked the prince if he was afraid that she might be a demon. The man replied to the vixen that he was not afraid of her because she had little spiritual energy and was not a threat to him. The vixen happily agreed with the prince that he had told her the truth. The prince continued to stare at the marks on the vixen's body. They were getting brighter and brighter. Evening descended on the prince's residence. The maid was on her way to his estate. After that, the maid opened the brother-in-law's door and entered his residence. A girl found a vixen sleeping on the floor. She asked her, wondering what she was doing here. The fox squeaked pitifully. She bowed to the maid and apologized for almost being punished because of her. Jui petted the beastie and was surprised that it had just apologized to her. Foxy nodded silently to the maid. She confirmed her apology. Jui told the vixen affectionately that it wasn't her fault. The maid didn't look after the fox herself. The beast wanted to remind the girl that she had almost gotten herself killed because of her. Jui replied to the fox that her duty was to follow His Highness's orders and protect her. The maid cradled the vixen in her arms, and the animal was very happy because of being near Jui now. The fox went for a walk in the garden, and the trees with yellow leaves and the sun was shining around her. Foxy felt that she was very hungry. She needed to eat now. The prince came up behind the fox and took her in his arms. She told him to let her go because she wanted to eat. The guy asked the vixen that if she knew she would get hungry quickly, why she was sleeping for so long. The animal thought the prince was a meanie. Beastie thought about it. She wanted to say something to the prince in her defense. The guy asked the animal if it wanted to have a nice meal. The fox very happily replied that he did. The prince told the fox to be a good girl for a while. Vixen saw a large portable booth in front of her for the prince. He told her they were going to the palace. A big banquet was held in the palace. Many guests were invited, and the prince and the fox arrived there. The prince put the fox at a table with various treats. She was very happy. While the vixen was looking at the delicious food with gusto, the banquet guests were discussing the prince and his pet. One of the guests wondered why Prince Chen had a pet fox. The maid told her that she had heard that the prince was a very big misophobe. The guest thought that if the prince was misophobic, he would never have gotten a pet. The fox reached for the meat dish with her paw. She wanted to eat it now. The prince fed the vixen from his hands. She felt that this treat was even tastier than the chicken legs she had been given at the residence. Prince Chen told the fox that if he liked the food here, he could hire a chef from here to cook for the fox at home. Vixen asked how Chen could steal his cook servant from the king. The prince replied that there was nothing wrong with that. A girl who was at the banquet approached the prince from behind. She addressed him politely. Lisa did not like the voice with which the girl addressed the prince. It seemed to her very false. Vixen tapped the prince's paw to get him to pay attention to the girl talking to him. The guy at this time shoved another delicacy into the vixen. He told her to eat her food. The girl came up and very loudly and modestly asked the prince for permission to have a drink with her. Lisa asked Chen why he was ignoring the girl. She told him that he would never get a girlfriend with that attitude. The prince took his wine glass and drank it himself. He didn't want to drink with the girl. The girl turned around and walked away. Lisa told Chen that he had to answer at least to the girl. The guests at the banquet discussed ignoring the girl's principles. They remembered that His Highness was known to be a very cold character. The rejected girl was very angry. She banged her glass on the table and decided it was all the fox's fault. It was because of the fox that the prince ignored her. The beast at this time, as if nothing had happened, was consuming various goodies at the banquet she had decided to eat to her heart's content. When she was full, the vixen thought happily to herself that it was very good to fill her belly. After a little rest, the animal realized that it had eaten a lot. She decided to find a bathroom. The fox noticed that the prince was busy talking to someone. She decided to go and look for him herself. The animal was running desperately. It needed to find a toilet very urgently. Two ominous figures rose up in front of the fox. She realized that she was in great danger. Fox was surrounded by two girls from the banquet. They were clearly plotting something evil against her. After the fox relieved herself, she decided to go for a walk. She felt very good. The animal suddenly felt someone grabbing her by the fur. She started screaming to be let go. The fox noticed that the girls she had seen at the banquet were standing around. One of them menacingly told the fox that they had finally found her. The animal was surprised. She figured the prince had made the girls find her and pick her up. The fox couldn't find her way back, and now the girls would bring her back to the palace. The fox wanted to hug them. One of the girls roughly grabbed the fox by the cheeks and asked what sorcery she had used to make the prince affectionate with her. The vixen thought happily to herself that the prince had become favorable to her due to the fact that she was nice. Another girl shouted to her friend that the fox looked very smug. The girl said no normal animal could behave like that. She decided that the fox was a witch. The girl said that if they let that witch near the prince, something bad might happen. Vixen shouted to the girls that they had misunderstood her. She was not actually a witch. In response, the girl shouted that she would get rid of the fox right now and not let that witch hurt Prince Chen. The animal was frightened. She could not understand what had happened to the brains of these girls. She felt she was suffocating. The fox decided to fight back. She swung her paw with all her might to attack the offenders. The girl yelled to her girlfriend to be careful since the devil fox wants to do something. At the same moment, the beast struck the girl's face with all her might with her paw. It scratched her badly. The girl let the fox go. She asked it angrily how it had dared to scratch her face. The fox wondered why she couldn't control her spiritual power. She didn't want to scratch the girl's face. The scratched girl was very angry. She decided to kill the vixen. The girl stepped her foot on the fox to run it over. The animal begged the prince to save it. At that moment, the prince arrived in time. He kicked the girl with all his might and she flew aside. Chen rescued the vixen and took her in his arms. The animal was very happy. The prince had saved her in time. The surprised girl asked the prince why he was here and what he was doing here. Chen didn't reply anything to the girl. He summoned his servant Qin Guye. He arrived. The prince ordered the servant to let the women go to the bottom of the river. Qin said he would do it. The girl shouted angrily to the prince that he wanted to kill her because she had done nothing wrong. After a little thought, Chen replied judiciously to the girl that she was guilty because she had touched something that belonged to him. The prince walked with the fox on his estate. He carried her gently in his arms. Vixen asked very insistently of Chen not to kill the girl. The guy was surprised that the fox was asking him to spare the man who was going to kill her. The fox told the prince that she wasn't a saint either. She didn't want the prince to order the girl to be executed. Chen was surprised. He asked the vixen if she was so worried about him. The fox told him that he simply didn't want to be indebted to him. The prince liked that kind of sincerity from the animal. He told her to do as she wished. Qingyi's servant approached Chen and said that he would completely take care of the consequences. The vixen continued to rest in Prince Chen's residence. She slept on his bed. The little animal woke up to a pleasant smell. She realized that it was a very pleasant chicken smell for her. The prince asked with interest to Qingyi's arriving servant how it went. Qingyi said that he had locked the girls in the prison on the grounds of the residence as ordered by the prince. The servant is waiting for Chen's order to punish the girls. The prince looked carefully at the servant and told him to forget it. Qingyi was very surprised. He asked the prince if he was not going to execute the girls. Chen said he promised the vixen he wouldn't kill the girls. He told the servant to make the girls wish for their own deaths to be the best punishment. Qingyi replied that he would fulfill everything. When the servant wanted to leave, the prince shouted at him to wait. Qingyi asked with great attention if there would be any other orders. Chen ordered the servant to cut out the girls' tongues. He doesn't want to hear them say mean things about his fox anymore. The servant shouted that he would do everything. He thought to himself that the girls couldn't even look up, and how could they abuse the vixen? Foxy, meanwhile, continued to rest peacefully in the prince's estate. The fox had eaten so much chicken feet that she couldn't look at them anymore. She lay on the bed. Chen looked at the fox and realized that she didn't forget about food even while sleeping. Chen wanted to pet the vixen. She didn't want to, so she dodged to the side. The prince asked the fox if she was in pain. He wondered if she would want to run away again. Chen said it's very good. There's some medicine left over from last time. Chen decided to put the ointment on the fox again. He opened the vial of medicine. The prince began to gently apply the ointment to the vixen. She calmed down and felt good. Chen looked at the vixen fondly and gratefully. He was glad that she was living with him. Morning came to the prince's residence. The vixen was sleeping sweetly in his room. Waking up, the fox was very surprised. She didn't understand why she was here. Turning around, the beast felt her neck ache for her. It was very strange. After a bit of thinking, the fox decided that her body ached because she had been working out a lot lately and had gotten stronger. Beastie heard the door to her room creak open. It was the maid coming. Jui walked into the room and was glad that the vixen was finally awake. The fox was also very happy to see the girl. She ran to her and jumped into her arms. Jui told the fox that she heard about what happened yesterday. She was very worried about her. The maid told the fox to follow the prince in the future. She said that the fox should beware of those who wanted to be Prince Chen's companion. Chadui told the vixen excitedly that if the enemies captured her, they would never let her go. The fox squealed happily. She told the maid that she agreed with her. The pet snuggled up to the girl. She felt calm and safe next to Jui. Lisa told the maid that she was hungry. Jui replied that they would go to the kitchen and see if there was anything left to eat. The little fox was sitting on the table in the kitchen. The maid was looking for food for her. Jui opened one basket and found a seafood rice porridge in it. The animal was very happy. She felt that the porridge smelled very good to her. Jui poured food into a plate for the fox. She told the fox to take her time and she would feed her now. The fox looked at the food and became very frightened. She noticed that something was wrong. The girl was already bringing up a large spoonful of delicious porridge for the vixen. The animal didn't want to eat. Jui asked her excitedly if she didn't want to eat anymore. The maid told the vixen that there was only one bowl of rice porridge left. The fox turned around and with a swish of his tail twisted the spoonful of porridge. The maid was surprised. Jui asked, wondering what happened to the fox today. The animal told the girl to look at the food. The maid looked at the food carefully. She noticed that the food was poisoned. Jui realized that she needed to check the food. She took out a special wand from her robe. The maid stuck her wand into the leftovers. It would help to know the level of food poisoning. The girl panted and thanked the vixen for stopping her in time. Jui turned around and walked towards the exit. She told herself that she was about to call Chingui. The fox noticed a whole crowd of ants coming to the leftovers. She realized that the insects couldn't tell if the food was poisoned. The beast heard someone's footsteps near the door. She thought Jui had come back. An unfamiliar warrior burst into the room. The fox had never met him before. The warrior shouted threateningly at the fox that she had ruined his plan. The fox asked fearfully to the warrior if he was the man who added the poison. The warrior angrily pounced on the vixen and said he would deal with her first. The vixen was very frightened. She realized that this stranger wanted to kill her. The fox dodged in time as the warrior wanted to grab her. She wondered why everyone wanted to grab her by the neck. The animal thought she had a very good intuition. At that moment, she stepped on a pot that was behind her. The bowler hit her head very hard in the woods. She was in a lot of pain. The warrior asked angrily to the vixen how such a fat and stupid creature could ruin his plan. The animal was very angry at such words and didn't like being called fat. The fox yelled to the warrior that she wasn't fat and hit him with all her might. The warrior was lying on the floor. He could not depart. The fox ran outside looking for Jui. The maid saw a very agitated fox run over to her. Next to her was Qingyi. When the servants ran into the residence, there was no one inside. Qingyi asked the vixen if she had seen the poisoner. She said she had. Qingyi told Jui that they have an assassin running around the residence. This is a serious problem. The maid asked what they should do now. The fox wanted to show the servants what the poison man looked like. She started making faces to show his appearance. The vixen portrayed the appearance of a warrior on her muzzle in every way possible. The servants looked at the beast in amazement and couldn't understand what it was doing. The fox realized she wasn't being understood and shouted to the people to follow her. Foxy, along with the servants, arrived at the prince's study. He was not there. The fox took a brush in her paws and began to draw on the paper. She wanted to depict the appearance of the poisoner. Qin was very much surprised that the vixen was so smart that she could draw. The fox tried very hard. Finally, she was able to finish the portrait. Qingyi and Jui looked at what the fox had drawn with great surprise. The servants laughed afterward, and the picture amused them greatly. The fox took offense at them. She didn't understand why they were laughing because the portrait was very similar. The servants saw on the paper a gaunt portrait of some evil and unknown to them man. Qingyi said that he had never seen such an ugly man before. He added that he was about to die of laughter. The vixen smelled the scent of spiritual energy. She realized the prince was here somewhere. Chen entered his residence. He asked the servants what they were doing here. Together, the servants bowed to the prince and greeted him politely. Qin told Chen that the fox had discovered the killer in his residence. She was able to draw his portrait. Qingyi's servant gently passed the package with the portrait into the prince's hand. The prince was very surprised. He could not believe that the fox could draw a portrait of the murderer. Qingyi, holding back laughter, told the prince that the vixen had drawn a portrait of the assassin. The fox added that she drew very well, but everyone laughs at her. Chen unfolded the drawing and looked at it carefully. He was surprised. The fox had said he shouldn't laugh. The prince asked the fox what the monster was. The fox answered that she had drawn a man-killer. The prince then returned the fox-painted portrait to his servant. The little fox told the prince that she used to take drawing lessons. She added that it was very difficult for her to draw with her paws. Chen told the fox to forget about everything and just describe the man to him. Fox said the killer had a pair of triangular eyes and a pointy nose. Animal said the killer looks like someone who works at the residence. Chen was telling his servants the details of what the person they needed looked like. The servants listened attentively to the prince. They told him that they had memorized everything and would begin the search right away. Qingyi and Jue turned around and walked out of the prince's residence. He was left alone. Vixen sat in the prince's arms. She felt her stomach rumbling. She told Chen that she was hungry. The prince asked the animal why she was hungry since it had been an hour. The fox told him she was supposed to go and look for food, but instead she met a killer. Chen asked with great excitement to the vixen if the warrior had tried to harm her. The fox said she had some spiritual energy. In doing so, the killer almost chopped her to pieces. The fox thought it wasn't very easy to control spiritual energy. She only wanted to slightly injure the intruder, but instead she sent him flying. The prince took the vixen in his arms. She thought it was easy for her to control the energy when she dealt with the arrogant ants. But then something went wrong. Chen calmed the beastie down and said they would continue to talk about it after she had eaten. The prince decided to go out with the fox and go to the kitchen. He went to the door. Opening the door, the prince noticed someone wanting to attack him with a knife. He blocked the blow just in time. The fox was very much frightened. The prince began to fight off his attacker. Foxy shouted to Chen that this particular man who had attacked them now was in the kitchen today. The prince told the beast that he recognized the warrior because of her portrait. The fox prepared to run away. She said that he would reward her later and that he should deal with the attacker now. Chen told the warrior that he was the first mercenary who was able to sneak into his residence. The mercenary was very angry. He kept attacking the prince with the knife. The warrior shouted loudly to Chen that he would take the man's life. He rushed to attack. Chen quickly and professionally dodged in different directions from the enemy's attacks. The mercenary couldn't hit Chen as he was very fast and agile. The warrior once again swung his knife to stab the prince. He failed. Chen asked his enemy if he really wanted to take his life with such pathetic martial arts skills. With agility, the prince was able to punch his attacker in the face with all his might. As a result, the mercenary fell to the ground. The prince was able to disarm him. The prince told the enemy that he was very weak and came down with only one blow. Chen told the mercenary that he was already born with a particularly ugly face. Chen's soldiers arrived. They said amicably that they were late and deserved to die because of it. The prince ordered his warriors to clean up the mess first and then get out of here themselves. The warriors dragged the disarmed mercenary away with them. The prince and the fox stepped aside. Foxy said sadly to Chen that there are already so many people who want to kill him. The prince thought about it and completely agreed with the fox. He had many enemies. The pet asked Chen pitifully if he was scared. She was worried about him. The boy answered calmly to the fox that he was afraid, but only before. He wasn't now. The fox thought that she used to assume that the prince was a winner in life, but she could not suppose that he could have dangers every day. The prince thought to himself that the fox was with him every day. He wondered what would happen if the mercenary wanted to kill the fox and he wasn't around. Evening came, and the fox went to bed, and the next morning he woke up. She opened her eyes after her nap and began to recover from her rest. When the beast woke up, she saw Chen next to her. He was completely undressed. The fox hid under the blanket and fearfully asked the prince what he was doing. Chen told her she was talking nonsense. He tapped the fox on the head with his palm where there was a bump. The fox thought the prince hadn't gone to work, but had stopped by early in the morning. That's what she thought. The prince got out of bed and started to put on his shoes. He decided to tell the fox what he needed to change from today. Chen told the vixen that she would get up early every day and cultivate. Foxy was very much surprised. She couldn't believe that she had to get up early every day. The prince said she is a spiritual fox and is only turning into a spiritual pig for now. The prince told the vixen that her spiritual energy is very weak right now. She would not be able to defend herself if she faced a strong enemy. The fox realized the human was right. Becoming a spiritual fox is much harder than becoming a human. Beastie jumped on the prince's head and told him they were going to cultivate. He told her to get down and go on her way. Chen and the fox were walking around his estate. He carried her in his arms the whole time. From the peace and tranquility, the fox fell into a deep sleep. She forgot about what they wanted to do together with the prince. A man decided to wake up a fox. He began to whisper to it that there was a chicken leg nearby. The fox immediately woke up and started fidgeting around looking for where the chicken leg was. Chen told the beastie strictly not to take any more naps anywhere, or he would turn it into a chicken leg. The fox yawned and said that she felt very tired after she passes here. But it wasn't because she wanted to sleep. The prince told the fox to keep practicing. He promised to send someone to supervise her. Lisa felt like she was back at school in her classroom and always wanted to sleep. After a little thought, she realized that she was not alone. A whole day had passed. Foxy sat in a state of deep cultivation the entire time. The beast was completely immersed in herself. She was completely disconnected from the world around her. Something suddenly diverted the fox's attention. Prince Chen came to see her. The guy approached the vixen slowly and asked how the cultivation went. The little animal was very glad to see the man. She rushed towards him. The fox told the prince that she had done well. She jumped into his arms. Beastie told the joyful prince that her spiritual energy was filled to the max. Chen told the vixen that she should feed her for her labor with a delicious meal. The little beast was very much pleased. She asked the prince in surprise if he meant it. The chanterelle didn't like the food. She threw up completely after a big meal. Lisa told Chan that he had tricked her. The food isn't that good. It makes her sick. The prince got angry. He said he'd just feed all that food to the dogs. The fox said sadly that such food probably wouldn't even be eaten by dogs. Chen was very annoyed and upset because the food didn't please the vixen. Maid Jui told the vixen that the dish she didn't like was made by the prince. Foxy was very surprised. She had never imagined that the prince could cook anything. Jui told me that this was the first time the prince had tried to cook something for that he had spent the whole day. The fox was very upset. She was sad because she had made Chen angry. Maid Jui decided to comfort the animal. First, she petted it. The girl told the vixen that the prince never openly shows his good side, but he does a lot for the beastie. Vixen almost cried. She decided that she must apologize to the prince. At this time, Chen was sitting in the garden. He was busy reading various documentation. The prince was sitting at a table. There was a pile of different documents, and the fox quietly approached him. The brute looked out from the side and turned to the prince, calling him a meanie. The prince opened the book. He looked at the vixen and waited to see what she would say. The fox put her paws on the table and addressed the prince once more, calling him a meanie. Beastie sat down in front of the prince and said the dish wasn't so bad, she just can't keep her mouth shut. The prince turned around and got up from the table. He didn't say anything back to the vixen. The fox went to the prince's leg and started rubbing against it. She asked him to give her a chance to make up for the evening. Chen asked the vixen how she could ever compensate for anything. He added that everything around him was his property. Overjoyed, the fox suggested to the prince that she cook him something. Foxy was cooking in the kitchen. She was fully engaged in the task. At the same time of entering the kitchen with the vixen, the prince stood undeterred. Servant Chin asked the maid what His Majesty is doing near the kitchen. Joy's maid tells him that the fox is cooking for the prince. Chen is afraid that the fox won't burn down the kitchen, so he stands guard. Joy was very surprised. He asked the maid if the fox could cook. The animal was very busy in the kitchen at this time. She was completely devoted to the cooking process. The fox cooked food without rest. She wanted the prince to like her very much. Eventually, she finished the cooking process. She thought it would be very difficult for her to cook anything in the body of a fox. The doors opened, and Prince Chen walked into the kitchen. He was eager to see what results the fox had achieved. The prince looked around the kitchen and asked the vixen how she was doing in her cooking progress. The fox was sitting on the table next to her on a dish of seasoned rice. She offered to taste it. The prince looked at the dish and asked the fox if she had mixed egg and rice. The prince looked at the dish and asked the chanterelle if she had mixed egg and rice. Chen looked at the dish for a long time, then he dared to taste it. The fox began impatiently asking the prince how he liked her dish. Chen said, satisfied, that he had no idea that such a simple combination could be so delicious. After tasting some more of the food, the prince said that he liked it very much. The fox heard those words from the prince, and a long-ago memory came over her. Foxy remembered when she was still in a girl's body and her mother cooked her meals for her. When her mother asked her daughter how she liked her lunch meat, she always said she was fine. Lisa thought to herself that she would like to try again the way her mom cooked. The prince continued to consume the rice. He noticed that the fox was hesitating and asked what was wrong. Beastie shook her head side to side. She replied that she was fine. Chen conciliatory stroked the vixen's side. He wanted to gain her trust. The prince told the beastie that she was his pet and should not keep secrets from him. The fox looked at the prince very sadly. She wanted to say something to him. The boy looked at the vixen carefully. He asked her what was wrong. Very sadly, the fox sitting in her arms said she was simply homesick. Chen thought to himself that she was very weak in a spiritual sense. She doesn't have her parents with her. The prince added that he would always be there for the animal. The fox can consider this residence his home. Foxy asked excitedly what would happen if Chen found an even cuter pet in the future. Chen was very much surprised by such a question. He was even at a loss for words. The prince asked with surprise at the fox did she really think he took her because she looked good. Chen made a suggestion for the vixen what she should do if she was worried about her role as a pet. The beast thought for a moment. She waited to see what the man would say to her. She thought he was going to say something unpleasant. The prince told the fox to hurry up and cultivate into human form. That way it would be harder for him to leave her. On a clear and rainy summer day, the vixen sat in the garden and was completely given over to the cultivation process. Maid Jui came over. She told the fox it was time for her to eat. The animal was distracted. The girl said the cook went into town today to get groceries. There's sure to be something the animal will like. The fox got very excited. She realized that there would be something delicious for her. Jui said that if she liked something, the chef would buy her favorite product for her next run. The fox thought to herself that she had been here in the prince's name for a very long time. The beast thought she had been in the residence the whole time, and had only been out once. The fox sat with the prince on the table. She was eating her favorite chicken leg. The vixen told the prince cheerfully that he was especially handsome today. Chen asked with interest to the fox what exactly she wanted from him right now. The fox finished eating his chicken leg and climbed right into the prince's arms. Sitting in his arms, the vixen told dreamily to the prince that she wanted to go outside. Chen stopped eating when he heard her words. He was surprised at such a request. The prince asked with interest to the fox why she wanted to go outside in the first place. The fox told him that she has been cultivating every day and is going crazy with boredom. She wants to take a walk outside and get some fresh air. The prince thought about what to say to the vixen. He said softly to himself that it would not be so terrible. Chen told the vixen that they could go outside on one condition. The fox was very surprised at this answer. She asked the prince if he meant it. Chen told the vixen she had to promise him something. She told him to say whatever he wanted. The prince petted the animal and said that he didn't want to say just now, but he would tell later when he had time. The vixen agreed with the prince. She was willing to wait for his demands, which he would tell her later. The fox thought to herself that it was a good thing she didn't live in the 21st century. But it was bad for her that she didn't know what she was promising the prince. A prince was walking through the city carrying a fox in his arms. The passers-by all looked at him. Girls on the street looked after the prince and said that he was very big handsome. The fox told the prince that she understood why he didn't like to walk around town. They attract a lot of attention. The fox and the prince walked past the sugar ball seller. The fox was interested. The animal asked the man to buy her these sugar balls. The prince agreed. He said he would do the fox's request, but he wanted her to do him a favor too. The fox told the prince that he was more and more mysterious. She asked what his request was. Chen asked the vixen to kiss him just once now. The prince continued to stroll leisurely through the city streets with the vixen. The fox was very surprised by his request. She didn't even know what to say. Chen told the animal that he was just messing with it. He promised he'd treat it to meatballs. The animal was very annoyed. She told the prince to stop saying those things to her. The fox told the prince to mock all he wanted, but not her hunger. Foxy decided to herself that the kiss would be no big deal to her. She wouldn't lose her leg or her arm. The fox kissed the prince gently. It felt a little strange to her. After that, the beastie was rewarded with an awful lot of meatballs. A girl approached the prince in the street. She greeted him and held out a small pouch. The girl asked Chen to take her set of dry, fragrant perfume. Foxy was very happy. She realized that it was a spontaneous declaration of love from the girl. The prince didn't like the girl's continuation. He rudely told her to get out. The girl was very upset and unpleasantly surprised by this response from Chen. The fox also got very angry. She hadn't expected such a response from the prince. The girl burst into tears and ran away. The prince looked at her without any emotion. The fox told the prince that he definitely has some skills. If God gives him metal, he will try to bend it. The prince asked the fox in wonder if she would want him to accept the gift from the girl. The fox told the prince that he shouldn't have just rejected the girl. He had hurt her little heart. Chen asked what gives him the girl's sadness. The fox took offense and told him that he was a pig prince. Suddenly, the vixen was very much surprised and rejoiced she saw a beautiful girl nearby. A young girl in bright pink clothes walked past the prince. She looked attractive. The vixen liked this girl very much. She looked at her irresistibly. The fox was very fascinated by this beautiful girl. She wanted the prince to meet her. Foxy told Chen to look at that hottie immediately, and now. The prince replied coldly to the fox not to look sideways at this girl. Fox thought to herself that if she could find a mate for the prince, it would improve her standing in the residence. The vixen realized it was time to act. She jumped out of the prince's arms and ran away. The fox ran very fast between the passers-by. She reached a girl in pink clothes. The fox grabbed the girl's clothes from behind. She wanted to get her attention. The girl turned around and saw an animal. She thought it was a cat sitting in front of her. The vixen was very upset. She did not understand why the girl took her for a cat, even though she was a fox. The girl took the fox in her arms and asked her what she wanted. The fox said that she wanted to ask the girl to marry a rich man. The girl liked the vixen's suggestion. She thought about it a bit. The girl holding the vixen in her arms ran to the side. She called out to her acquaintance named Don Lan. Foxy was very surprised. She couldn't understand who the girl had just run up to. The girl was standing and talking to a young boy. The vixen was sitting on her shoulder at the same time. The guy looked at the girl in surprise and listened intently to what she was telling him. The girl called the guy Don Lan and said she sewed this bag of aromatic herbs especially for him. The boy was very angry. He knocked the bag out of the girl's hands in anger. The girl was very unpleasantly distressed and surprised. The vixen was also astonished. Don Lan told the girl that he had told her once before not to bother him anymore. The guy rudely told the girl that he spent one night with her and not to let her think he was going to marry her. The fox thought to herself. She decided that she was in a very bad period of history. Don Lan shouted at the girl to at least think about who she was. She didn't belong in his family. Vixen shouted after the guy who was leaving that he only deserved to die. The girl walked and sadly said to herself that she knew this guy wouldn't love her. Foxy told the girl not to mess with guys like that anymore. Then the prince came up. He turned to the girl and asked her to give him back his fox. The girl looked at the prince in surprise. She didn't know what to say to him now. The girl asked Chen what proof he had that it was his cat. Chen continued to the girl to let the vixen go. The fox had to return to his arms. The fox thought to herself. She didn't understand why the prince thought she would return to his arms. Chen activated his spiritual abilities. He decided to send a telepathic message to the fox. The guy looked at the fox. He was concentrating on forwarding her message. The vixen looked at the prince. She accepted from him successfully his message. The fox jumped from the girl's arms and said she would go back to the prince if that was what it took. Vixen tells Chen that he's only mad at her because she's cute. The girl realized that this pet belonged to the prince. She decided to stay out of his way. The girl turned around and walked further down the street through the crowd of people. The fox said excitedly to the prince to hurry up and follow the girl. Chen asked the foxy girl why he should go after the girl. The fox said that a girl with a broken heart might do something stupid. The prince thought very hard. After thinking about what the little fox had said, he realized that she was right. The fox decided to persuade the prince. She tapped his clothes with her paws to get him to listen to her. Beastie kissed the guy. She really wanted to impress him. The fox looked at the prince very pitifully. She asked him to listen to her. Chen thought the fox was very annoying. He decided to agree to her request. Lisa said she simply couldn't bear to see the girls cry. Upon reflection, the vixen thought she sounded like a classic asshole. The prince followed the girl at a distance. They walked across town. The guy watched the girl from afar. She was heading towards one building. The fox got very angry. She saw the girl walk up to a building with a funhouse. The prince approached the building. He said he wasn't surprised that the girl had come here. Lisa said that the guy was only looking at a girl named Lin Long because of her status. When the girl Lin Long entered the building right at the doorstep, she was greeted by the mistress. The lady asked the girl angrily where she had disappeared to. Many guests made a fuss over her absence. Lin Long called the woman Madame Wu and quietly apologized to her. The woman was silent. She looked at the girl for a very long and piercing moment. In the end, Mrs. Su said for the girl to hurry up and go inside. People are waiting for her performance. When Mrs. Su saw the prince enter the building, she greeted him. Mrs. Su told the prince that she didn't expect to see him here. The girl Lin Long asked the prince fearfully what he was doing here. She thought he was following her. The prince told the girl that the road was very wide. He asked Lin Long why she thought he would follow her. Mrs. Su told the prince that there's a performance tonight. If he's here, he can watch. The little fox was very excited. She said she wanted to see it too. The girl Lin Long told the prince that if he got tired, he could come in and watch. After a little thought, the prince answered the girl that he would not go in. The beastie was very much disturbed. She started tapping the prince's clothes with her paw. The fox looked at the prince very seriously and said she was begging him. Foxy told Chen to let her go and see the performance. After a little thought, the prince agreed. The vixen was very much pleased. The satisfied fox said joyfully and cheerfully to the prince that he was the best. Chen thought about it. He realized that after he picked up that fox, he no longer had a sense of proportion. Mrs. Su said that the son of War Minister Duan Yai was coming to visit them today. She added that their brothel called Piaoxiang is the best at this moment. Lisa remembered that she had heard the name Duan Yai before. It was kind of like the guy who had gotten Lin Long. Lisa decided that she would teach Duan Yai a lesson. At this time, people were gathered in the hall and everything was covered with brightly colored decorations. The little fox was very much amazed. She looked with great fascination at everything. Madame Su told the prince to sit in a special seat just for him. There was a special place for Chen in a special box. Foxy jumped up and ran over to see what was going on in the hall. Fox looked out into the hall and heard the huge crowd repeating the girl's name, Lin Long. Foxy wondered if Lin Luol at this time is as popular as idols in the 21st century. The prince approached the fox and took her in his arms and told her to watch her surroundings. Chen looked to the side. Something very much caught his attention. The prince noticed a special figure standing next to him. He thought it was an artifact of the ruling dynasty. Miss Su came on stage and greeted all the guests. Someone from the side shouted for her to stop. A guy named Duan Yai asked angrily to Madame Su who dared to take his place. The vixen got very angry. She shouted that Duan Yai is the worst of all assholes. Duan Yai was very angry when he saw that a fox was sitting in his place. He did not expect this. Duan asked angrily at Madame Su how dare she give his seats to a certain stupid fox. The little beast got very angry. She asked Duane how he dared to call her stupid. Chen put his hand on the vixen. He gently stroked her to reassure her. The prince rose from his seat and asked strictly who was there, and what he had said about his fox. Duan was very surprised and annoyed. He did not expect to see Prince Chen here. The prince looked at Duane and asked him if he wasn't worthy of the place. Mrs. Su noticed the conflict between the boys. She realized that if they got into an argument, her business would be ruined. Duan said he was worthy of his place. He didn't expect His Highness to appear in such an establishment. The prince replied that if Duan could come here, it meant that he also had the right to be here. Duan decided to bow down to the prince and fell to his knees in front of him. Duan then said that Chen is the only worthy person to sit here today. Vixen looked at Duane and told him that now he knew who her boss was. The prince decided to continue his conversation with Duan. He got up from his chair to do so. Chen looked sternly at Duan. He asked the one with interest who was not worthy of sitting in that seat. Duan replied obediently, and clearly he is the one who is not worthy of sitting here. The fox told the prince that he knows and can make idiots out of those around him. She's much better now. The prince put his hand on the vixen. He decided to pet her to calm her down. Chen told the beastie that if he was her boss, she should go back to her seat. Duan moved towards the exit with fear. People said that he was always usually arrogant. At this time, music started playing on the stage. Someone shouted that Lin Lan's girlfriend had already come out. Lin Lan began her performance on stage. The guests shouted for everyone to hurry up as the show was starting. The girl danced on stage and the audience enthusiastically shouted that they were always for her. There was someone here shouting joyfully at Lin Lan that he adored her a lot. The vixen also very happily shouted Lin Lang's name. She was fully supporting the girl. The prince asked the fox how she could support the girl. Is she really a male fox? The vixen shouted to the prince why he thought she was a man since she is in reality a girl. Chen asked the vixen how she could prove her gender identity. Lissa said she likes guys and is in full support of the girl Lin Lan. The prince was pleased with this answer. He liked that the fox was supporting the girl. The audience shouted enthusiastically to the girl Lin Lang that she was the best. Something caught the girl's attention. She looked carefully to the side. Lisa noticed that Lin Lan didn't look very happy in any way. The girl wanted to walk across the stage but suddenly slipped. Lin Lan started to fall and there was nothing around and she couldn't grab onto anything. The vixen shouted restlessly towards the girl. She wanted to help her. The prince decided to help the girl. He very quickly jumped out of his lodge. Chen got there just in time. He grabbed the girl in flight and saved her from falling. After that, the prince landed right in the middle of the stage with Lin Lang in his arms. The rescued girl thanked him very politely and cheerfully. The audience cheerfully and joyfully shouted that Prince Chen had very good skills. Foxy looked sadly at Chen and the girl. She thought that they looked like they fit together. When the prince left the building, Mrs. Su told him goodbye to come to them more often. Chen looked at the vixen. He said she didn't look happy after the end of the show. Lisa told him that she was fine. She thought to herself that she had thought she would be happy to find a partner for Chen Yu. Foxy didn't understand why she felt so sad when she saw the prince together with Lin Lang. The fox imagined herself as a red-haired girl. She would love to be held in the arms of a prince. The beast thought hard whether what she was feeling was love. Here the fox was surprised at her thoughts. She even shook her head to drive them away from her. The next day morning, the prince, along with the fox, took breakfast at his residence. A maid came up and addressed the prince sitting at the table, who was silent in response. The maid told the prince that the king was summoning him and his vixen to his palace. Chen thought deeply. He couldn't understand why the king could summon him. The king and the queen were waiting for the prince at the palace. He decided to arrive early. The current emperor of the country was called Swan Yuanyang. It was to him that Chen and the fox arrived. The prince slowly approached the king and queen. The animal sat in his arms. Chen greeted the king. The fox was mesmerized and silent at this time. The king asked the prince cheerfully and slyly if he had gone to the brothel yesterday. He asked him if he had been able to find a suitable lady there. The prince said he was surprised that the busy king would find time for the rumors that surround him. The king liked that answer. He decided to continue talking to the prince. The king said he had heard that the prince had taken in a little fox. Then the king said that his musician had written a song about a spiritual fox. He wants to share it with the prince. A musician came out and greeted the prince and called himself Bai Muyue. He took out his instrument and began to play. Foxy told the prince that there was a great spiritual energy in this man's music. He agreed. After playing the song, Bai Muyue stopped playing his instrument. The king asked the prince what he thought of the song. Chen replied that he liked it. Bai Muyue said that behind the song is a story with the same name. The king was surprised. Bai asked the attendees if they had heard the story of the spiritual foxes. The musician said that spiritual foxes are pets of the gods. They can understand the human essence and turn into humans. Because foxes are so special, many people have shot to own them. Many such individuals have been caught causing them to become extinct. Bai added that if one drank the blood of a royal spirit fox, one would gain immortality. The story told by the musician Bai surprised the king very much, and he couldn't believe it was true. The animal was scared. She realized that if people found out that she was from the royal spirit fox clan, she would be killed immediately. The story from the musician most interested the prince. He thought deeply. Chen held the vixen in his arms and felt that she was very scared. At the same time, the prince did not utter a single word. After meeting at the king's house, the prince and the vixen rode home in a wagon. The prince asked the vixen with interest if she was scared. The animal was still scared. The fox told the prince frankly that she was frightened. She could very easily turn into a fur coat. Chen decided to comfort his furry friend. He gently and softly stroked the vixen. The prince told the fox judiciously that if she was scared, then let her work harder on cultivation. It would help her turn into a human. Chen said that when the fox turns into a human, no one will realize it was once an animal. The fox, full of determination, said confidently to the prince that she would work hard and cultivate. A whole month had passed and the prince was very busy with his business and working at his residence. Chen was working with documents. At this time, a maid came up to him. She was waiting for instructions. The prince asked to the servant girl, "Continues to fox still cultivating?" The girl cheerfully said that the backyard vixen cultivated every day for 6 hours. The prince liked this answer very much and got up from the table and prepared to go. Chen said he would go and check on the fox. The maid said the fox was taking a bath. She asked if we should bring some chicken. The prince remembered his favorite dish and told the girl to cook some chicken. Chen walked into the pool carrying her favorite food on a platter for the fox. He called out to her. The guy noticed a red-headed girl with fox ears swim up to the edge of the pool. Chen was very much surprised. He couldn't believe that such a transformation had happened to the little fox. The girl looked at the guy and asked him why he came here. That's when the girl spotted her favorite dish. She threw herself on a chicken leg. The girl jumped out of the water. She asked the prince why he was so nervous. Only now did she notice that she had turned into a human, and she was very amazed. Chen turned slightly to the side, gave the girl a robe, and told her to put it on. After that, the guy and the girl sat on the edge of the pool for a long time. They didn't know where to start talking. The girl asked Chen with naive interest if she looked cute right now. The prince decided to play a joke on the girl and said she looked ugly. Because of this, the girl was very offended and upset. She said she should have gone on a diet. Chen said he was joking and the girl actually looks lovely. The girl told the prince her name was Qing Shi. The word Qing means pure, and Shi means soul. The guy stroked the girl's head and said he'd be sure to remember that. The girl walked happily through the city. She decided to herself that no one would see her ears unless she wanted to. Chen told her that it still wasn't good enough. The girl walked and thought to herself that she was much more comfortable being a human than a fox. The girl asked the prince to give her some money. She wanted to buy some food. Turning around, the girl noticed to have the prince nowhere to be seen around her. The girl looked to the side and saw that Chen was in the store, haggling with the clerk. When the prince came out, the girl asked him why he left without telling her. What would happen if she got lost? The guy looked at the girl and asked her if she liked the jade necklace. Chen showed her the jewelry. The necklace glowed and sparkled with different colors. The girl was overjoyed. She realized that there was spiritual energy in this jade necklace. The prince told the salesman to pack him the necklace and the rest of his silver jewelry. The girl grabbed the green pendant and said she also wanted, and this piece of jewelry. The prince agreed. Chen gave the girl a beautiful piece of jewelry, told her to take it. The girl thanked him happily and took the green pendant in her hands. The prince gave his girlfriend another beautiful green piece of jewelry. The girl told Chen that in the future when she had money she would pay him back. The salesman told the prince that his wife had beautiful eyes. He told the girl that her husband looked charming. The prince was very pleased at such compliments. He held the girl's hands. The girl said people get it all wrong. She suggested he go to another store. Suddenly a reverse transformation began with the girl. She could not stop the process. The girl shouted for the prince. He didn't immediately realize what was happening to her. Chen turned around and noticed that the girl he came with was no longer there. The salesman looked out of the store and noticed that the customers were gone, and said that he didn't even have time to give them their change. The prince, together with the vixen, returned to his manor in great haste. He carried her in his arms into the garden. The fox called fearfully and frustratedly to the prince as he carried her in his arms farther into the garden. Chen told the vixen to start cultivating right away. She doesn't have enough spiritual energy, and for that reason, she can't hold the transformation for long. If someone reveals her identity, she will die. The fox listened attentively to the prince. She realized that everything he said was very important. The vixen snuggled up to the prince. She told him happily that she had him after all. The prince sat next to her in a meditative pose. He said he would help her with her cultivation. The fox was very much frightened. She asked the prince to stop. The transformation process took place and the girl said she felt good. The girl hugged the prince and said that no one would want to marry her in the future. Maid Zui had a dream. She's been saving money for 3 months. Now she thought of what she could buy. At that time, the prince passed by her with a girl in his arms and told the maid to give him a woman's robe and fill the bathtub. Maid Zui bowed to the prince and said that she would fulfill everything. At this time, the maid was very surprised. She had never seen a prince take care of a girl. The maid brought the prince the clothes he had just asked her for. After that, Chen told the maid she could leave. He went to the pool. The prince approached the pool. He slowly pulled back the curtains that covered the girl in the water. At this time, the girl was resting in the water. She was comfortable and convenient. The prince approached her. The prince gave the girl new and clean clothes. She thanked him for it. Chen asked the girl if she wanted to eat like that. He said he could bring something to eat. The girl said she really wanted the prince to bring her a chicken leg. Chen told the girl to hurry up and change and he would bring her food. The girl dressed herself and sang a song. This song strengthened her and energized her with optimism. After that, the girl was fully prepared to snack on whatever the prince brought her. Suddenly, the girl felt a foreign spiritual energy nearby. She started fidgeting around. She couldn't figure out where the power source was. Suddenly, from the side, a ninja in black rushed at the girl. She managed to dodge. Then the ninja hit the girl and she couldn't hold on and fell into the pool. After that, a group of other ninjas in black appeared. They all stood in a row. The girl was frightened to see such a large group of dangerous warriors. The girl swam out of the water and asked the ninjas what they wanted from her. The warriors said they came to kill Prince Chen first, but now they have to kill the girl as well. The girl jumped up. She shouted to the ninjas that she would not give them a chance to carry out their plan. The warriors felt that they could not advance any further and were restrained by a strong force. The girl standing by the pool fought off the attackers with her spiritual powers. The girl had enough strength to take out a large number of enemies by herself. She could fatally strike enemies that attacked her from all sides. The girl thought that warriors in reality are very weak and can only talk. The girl was able to kill one of the last remaining enemies left on her feet. Then suddenly a ninja with a knife rushed at the girl from the side. She didn't see him. The girl was very much frightened. She had no strength or ability to fight off this warrior. The ninja ran towards the girl and managed to stab her. She couldn't defend herself. After the stabbing, the girl could no longer stand on her feet and she fell into the pool. The girl didn't even have the strength to swim. She was just left lying on top of the water surface. The girl felt that life was gradually leaving her. She felt as if she were falling somewhere. At the same time, her spiritual power continued to overwhelm the warriors attacking her. The girl was lying on the water. She thought to herself that she didn't want to die just like that. The process of reverse transformation had begun. A small fox with a large bloody wound was swimming in the pool. At that time, a prince came to the pool and carried food on a platter for the girl. As he approached the pool doors, Chen stopped. He sensed something amiss. The prince distinctly smelled the odor of blood coming from the pool. The prince went inside the pool. He saw a huge pile of corpses lying around and a fox swimming in the water. The prince looked over and saw that the fox was completely unconscious and had a wound on its tummy. The prince realized it was time to save the animal. He jumped into the water after the fox. The guy grabbed the vixen's hands. He yelled excitedly for her to wake up. When the prince came to his senses, he immediately summoned the servants to help him. At the prince's instruction, devoted servant Qing Yi and Mei Jui immediately arrived. The prince ordered the servants to bring you here, most likely a healer. Mei Jui anxiously grabbed servant Qing Yi's sleeve. She wanted to tell him something important. The girl told the guy that they still don't know who is behind this. He needs to be careful on the palace grounds. Qing Yi replied very confidently to the girl that he would be careful. At this time, the royal healer arrived at the estate and was greeted by the prince. The doctor began to examine the fox. He was most interested in the animal's wound. The prince inquired with interest and concern from the healer about the condition of the vixen. The doctor said the fox's wound wasn't very big. It's just soaked in poison. The prince became very angry. He banged his hand on the table with all his might. The prince asked sternly to the healer if his vixen could still be saved. The doctor was frightened. He dropped to his knees in front of Chen and said that the fox could be saved. The healer said it would require a very rare and complex ingredient. The prince asked strictly of the healer what exactly the treatment would require. The doctor said we'd need a snow lotus. This flower grows on high mountains and is very rare. It's only available to the emperor. Chen couldn't stop thinking about the vixen. He was willing to do anything to help her. The prince walked over to the bed where the fox was lying on his bed. She was unconscious. Chen decided to provide as much help as possible for the beastie in healing her. The prince told the maid to take care of the fox. He had to go to the palace. The maid said she would. She too was worried about the fox. Qing Yi's servant said that it was deep night and he was very scared if he went to the palace at this time. Chen said resolutely that he was willing to go down to hell for that flower. The prince thought to himself that it would not be difficult for him to get the flower out of the palace. Late in the evening, the prince arrived at the palace. He drove up to the entrance where there were many guards. The prince rode leisurely up to the entrance on his horse. The guards noticed him at once. The guards blocked the entrance for the prince and told him to stop. The prince ordered the guards to stand back and they wouldn't listen to him. The guards said it's already closed. No one can get in, not even Prince Chen. Chen looked at the guards and told them once more to disperse. One of the guards told the prince not to let himself go too far. The prince realized that there was no time to delay and leaped past the guards, striking those who were in his way with his sword. The prince rushed to the palace on horseback behind him. He left the bodies of the guards. The palace was alarmed, guards shouting to stop the assassin. The prince continued to try to evade pursuit. He raced on horseback through the palace. The guards arrived and began to surround the prince on all sides. Chen found himself surrounded in a ring. He couldn't get out of there in any direction. The prince shouted menacingly and sternly to the guards to retreat as soon as possible. One of the servants shouted loudly that His Majesty the Emperor had arrived. The travelers all bowed at once in greeting to their ruler. The emperor walked slowly past his servants and approached Prince Chen Yu. The ruler asked the prince why he appeared to him in his court in the middle of the night for what. The prince started to get down from his horse. He wanted to voice his request to the emperor. Chen told the ruler that he wanted to ask him for one thing. The emperor was very much puzzled. He asked the prince what he wanted. Chen told the ruler that he needed a snow lotus from the top of the mountains. One of the servants shouted that only His Majesty could use the snow lotus. The king gestured for his servant to stop. He thought about the prince's request. The emperor asked the prince if he was poisoned if he asked for a white lotus. The prince answered the ruler honestly that his favorite fox had been poisoned. The emperor asked Chen if he really wanted to give such a precious plant to some beast. The prince realized that he could not delay now, and drew his sword from its sheath. Chen pointed his sword at the emperor and demanded that he give him a snow lily. The emperor asked angrily to the prince how he could do such a thing. After a little thought, the emperor agreed with the prince to fulfill his request. At this time, the servants brought a box with a healing white lotus inside. Chen took the box with great care. He realized he still had a chance to save the fox. The prince thanked the emperor, jumped on his horse, and rode home. The emperor, after the prince's entry, looked long and thoughtfully after him. A few days later, the prince decided to check on the vixen and see what her condition was. Chen noticed a doctor in the bedroom near the bed with the fox. He said that the fox had already taken the snow lotus, and why was she still not awake? The healer bowed to the prince and said he didn't know why this was so. The beast should have awakened long ago. The doctor added judiciously that this vixen had a very special condition. Chen got angry and yelled at the doctor to stop talking nonsense. He promised to chop off his head if the fox didn't wake up right away. The fox opened her eyes. She called out to the prince in a barely audible voice, calling him Swan Yuan Yu. Chen asked with wonder at the healed beastie if she was awake yet. The healer said he had to leave immediately. The prince held the fox in his arms. Chen looked at the beastie with excitement and tenderness. He asked if she had any pain anywhere. The fox said she needed to take a bath right away because she was already stinking. Chen told the vixen with surprise that it was very rare for her to be so eager to wash herself. The animal told the man capriciously that she always wanted to be clean. The maid told the prince that she wanted to take the vixen to the bathroom. She suggested he rest first. Chen told the girl to bring the fox back after the bath and keep a close eye on it. The maid took the animal carefully in her arms and went to bathe with it. The vixen sitting in the girl's arms looked up from her hands to follow the prince. Chen was approached by his servant Qing Yi, who said he had something to report. The prince sat and listened to the servant's report. Qing Yi said that a couple of days ago, when the prince invaded the palace, rumors ran through the streets. The prince was very much interested in such words and continued to listen to the servant. Qing Yi said that people are now saying that the emperor is just a puppet and he is inferior to Prince Chen. Such rumors can affect the relationship between Chen and the king. The prince told the servant not to think about it. He immediately agreed. The emperor at his palace was very angry. He didn't like the rumors about him. The ruler would smash everything in his office and call people arrogant fools. The emperor couldn't understand how ordinary people dared to call him a puppet. Standing next to the emperor was the minister's daughter named Yan Xiyu and her accompanying boyfriend. The arriving guests greeted the emperor in a friendly and polite manner. The ruler asked them sternly and grudgingly what they were doing here. Yan Xiyu's girlfriend entered the conversation. She had plans to help the emperor. Yan Xiyu told the ruler that she knows about the rumors. She has a plan to put Prince Chen in his place. Late in the evening, the prince was relaxing with the vixen on the roof of the house under the moon. Fox asked the prince if he knew that the mercenaries had come for him that day. After a little thought, the prince petted the vixen and said he knew it. Animal asked apprehensively to the prince if he knew who sent the assassins. Chen said all the mercenaries are dead. He has a lot of enemies and it's hard to know who could have sent them. The fox told the prince to rest. She promised to protect him when she was better. Chen replied to the beastie that she should be able to protect herself first and foremost. The fox replied that she should work harder and improve herself so she could protect herself and him. The girl, along with the prince, went out to the courtyard to improve their martial arts skills. The girl looked at the different weapons and wondered what she should choose. Chen asked the girl if she really wanted to learn martial arts. It won't be easy for her. The girl replied that one must constantly strive to evolve. If the mercenaries come, she will be able to deal with them. Chen told the girl to pick a weapon, and they would begin training. The girl took the spear. She said that this weapon can only be used if you rely on luck. The girl didn't like the sword either. She said it wasn't particularly long. The girl picked up a dueling sword. It could also do damage if you weren't careful with it. The prince watched the girl. She kept going through various weapons for herself. The girl gave the prince a sly look and said she had some thoughts. The girl looked carefully at the guy and told him with a smile that she wanted a whip. From excitement, the girl even twitched her ears, and the prince wondered he didn't know where he had the whip. After a little thought, Chen took out a box. It should have contained the right weapon. The prince opened the box and there was a very powerful and high-quality whip. Chen told the girl that spears and whips are honored in the country where his mother, the princess, lives. The girl asked excitedly to the prince if she could take his mother's item. Then in the distance she heard the clatter of approaching feet and was frightened. The girl told the frightened prince that someone was coming. No one was supposed to see her in human form. The girl instantly turned into a vixen and jumped into the prince's arms. Jue's maid came over. She told the prince cheerfully that everything was ready. The prince was overjoyed. He told the maid that everything was fine. He prepared to leave. The fox asked excitedly to the prince where he was going and she needed more practice. Chen told the vixen that he would show her the new yard. She was very surprised. Then the prince and the brute went out to the new courtyard on his estate. Lisa asked Chen how they got here. She felt very much lost. Chen said that every detail of this courtyard is like a maze. Usually people can't get in here. Foxy thought to herself that fairy tale buildings really do exist. Chen told the jolly beast that she would live here in the future. The fox was very much surprised. She couldn't believe that all this had been created for her. The vixen now realized that the prince valued her very much since he had created such living conditions for her. The beastie climbed on top of the prince's head and began to survey the surroundings. The girl told the prince her whole life story even before her transformation into a fox. The prince answered the girl in surprise that he had never realized that there was another world. The girl answered the prince sadly that she needed to find her way home. She still had her family waiting for her. The prince looked at the girl with great and unwavering attention. She wondered if she had something on her face. The prince turned his head to the side and told the girl that none of that mattered. The girl set her cup on the table. She had something she wanted to ask the prince. The girl told the prince that she had told him her important secret. She sat down close to Chen and said that she wanted to ask him for a favor. The girl irritatedly asked the guy to take her somewhere else too. She was dying of boredom here. The prince went out into the city with the vixen. They had lunch at a restaurant. The fox told the prince that they only came out here for food, and he made her walk so far. Chen told the vixen that she was tired of the short distance. He suggested bringing exercise into cultivation. The prince and the fox were eating a delicious lunch. The fox was eating her favorite chicken legs. Chen wiped the vixen's face. He told her that a girl should always make a good impression. The prince listened and heard that in a neighboring booth they were talking about him and his recent arrival at the palace. Chen listened silently to what the people in the next booth in the restaurant were saying about him. At this time, the guests at the next stall were discussing Prince Chen and his fox. They also recalled the story of how Chen had come to the emperor's palace and demanded a snow lotus. The fox looked at the prince. She realized that he was the man who had saved her. Guests in the restaurant recalled that the emperor was scared to death and immediately gave the flower to the prince. One man didn't believe that a prince could threaten the emperor just for a flower for a vixen. One guy said that after what happened in the palace, the emperor might want the prince dead. A different guest said that the emperor sent assassins to Prince Chen, but it ended up poisoning the fox. Chen didn't want to listen to any more of this. He tapped his hand on the table and said enough was enough. The prince was heard by the people in the next stall. The fox at this time hid under the table and turned into a girl. The people from the next stall looked over and saw that Prince Chen was next to them. The prince called his servants to him and began to dictate his decree to them, and they listened attentively. Chen grabbed the girl's hand. He was afraid she might get lost. After some thought, the prince ordered his servants to cut out the tongues of the guests in the restaurant. The servants dutifully told the prince that they would fully comply with this order. The girl asked the prince to go slower as she couldn't keep up with him. When the prince and the girl entered the garden from afar, they were spotted by Jue's maid. Jue looked at the girl next to the prince and thought she looked familiar to her. Chen led the girl beside him by the arm. She yelled that she was in pain. Calming down a bit, the prince relaxed and let go of the girl's hand. Chen gently blew on the girl's hand and asked her to apologize for the pain. The girl thought about it. She realized that the prince and the emperor would fight for the throne until one of them died. The prince told the girl to keep him company tomorrow at the palace. The girl asked the guy if she would need to turn back into a vixen. The prince answered nothing to the girl. He decided to show everyone his girlfriend in her human form. The next day in the palace, the maids were preparing and embellishing the girl. After much work, one of the maids told the girl that they were finally done. The girl was brightly and beautifully painted, completely in the style of a vixen. The maids helped the girl emphasize her special style tea appearance. The girl looked at herself in the mirror and didn't recognize herself. She wasn't used to looking like this yet. The girl asked the maid if it couldn't be her in the mirror. The maid replied that it was the most popular makeup and attire at the moment. The girl gave the maids the command that she would do everything herself and have them wait outside. A girl decided to change her style. She thought that the king should not see her like this. At that time, the prince was approaching the girl's room. He noticed two maids sitting near the entrance. Chen asked the maids why they were sitting near the entrance. "Isn't the girl ready yet?" At that time, the door opened and a girl came out of there. She appeared before the prince in her own image. The red-haired girl appeared to the prince wearing a light blue robe. Chen was very much astonished by this appearance of the girl. He looked at her for a long time. The girl took the prince under her arm, and he told her to go with him. Chen and his companion arrived at the palace gate in a wagon. The girl said dreamily that last time she hadn't really seen the palace. The girl was very much impressed by the construction. She said that the palace was very exquisite and beautiful. The girl thought to herself how much money the common people had to raise to build such a palace. The prince told his girlfriend that he needed to get everything ready for her. He asked her to wait for him here. The girl told the prince that she was already sore from sitting in one place for so long. After that, the girl jumped out of the carriage and said that it was rare for her to come to the palace. She decided to look around. The girl was walking in the garden near the palace. She was there all by herself. Suddenly, the girl realized that she was lost again for the umpteenth time. The girl walked silently through the garden. She wanted to find someone to ask where the exit was. The girl noticed a gazebo in the distance. A boy and another girl were standing there talking to each other. The girl was glad that there were people around. She decided to go over there and ask for directions. Looking closer, the girl noticed that the people in the gazebo looked very familiar to her. The girl looked at the couple in the gazebo for a long time. They were talking about something. Then the girl remembered that she had seen these people near the king last time. After that, she decided not to listen to anything else and to run away from here as soon as possible. As carefully and slowly as the girl wanted to go, she stepped on a branch which made a loud crunching sound. The guy in the gazebo turned around startled and asked who was there next to them. The girl realized that she was in great danger. She thought that the people in the gazebo would hurry to get rid of the witnesses. In the end, the girl decided not to hesitate. She went to the gazebo and told people that she was simply lost and didn't want to disturb them. The guy from the gazebo looked at the girl who had come in. She seemed to him to be a beauty out of this world. The girl from the gazebo took a long look as well. She realized that the girl who had passed was an absolutely bloody beauty. The guy called himself Bai Muyue, and the king's personal musician. He asked the girl if it was her first time in the palace, and if that was the reason she was lost. The girl got very excited, and she confirmed that it was her first time at the palace. Guy Bai Muyue thought that the girl has beauty, and wants to show herself in front of guys right away. The girl in the gazebo thought that the beauty who approached them was very charming and would steal every man's heart. In the end, the girl decided that she couldn't let the hottie meet the king. Just then, the girl who came in noticed some very tasty cakes on a platter. Bai told the girl politely that she could eat those cakes if she wanted. A girl in the gazebo told Guy Bai that it was her brownie on a platter. He told her that he would have the kitchen make her another portion. The girl was very angry. She didn't like that Bai gave her cakes to the girl who came. The girl ate the brownies she said were delicious. Bai looked at the girl with great sympathy and said that she was very interesting. The girl answered him cheerfully and plaintively that she laughed to herself. The girl bowed, thanked the people for the cakes, and said she had to leave. Bai very excitedly offered to guide the girl further. The girl hesitated. She realized that it would be very suspicious if she refused. Afterward, the girl thanked Bai for his offer to see her off. The girl from the gazebo watched Bai see his new acquaintance off for a long time. The girl in the gazebo got very angry. She turned the table on its side. The girl called for her servant named Xiao Hong. He arrived immediately. The girl gave instructions to identify the girl who came. She said she would not give her a chance to approach the king. Guy Bai was walking around the royal garden with his new girl acquaintance. The two of them walked together for a long time along the stone paths. At one point they stopped. The girl told the guy he could leave her here. She can walk the rest of the way on her own. The girl thought to herself that it would be no good if the prince saw her with another man. Bai replied respectfully to the girl that he would only be calm when she returned home. Suddenly, the boy and girl heard a shout from outside. The prince asked them what they were doing here. Bai greeted the prince politely. Chen silently stared back at him. Chen grabbed the girl's hand very roughly. The prince was very angry. The prince asked the girl how she could have ended up here with this man. The girl was very much frightened. She could hardly hold back her tears and could not answer anything intelligible. Bai explained to the prince that the girl had come to the palace to find her teacher. He asked to do her some favor. The prince got very angry. He said that an ordinary musician can't tell him what to do. Bai said he's the king's personal musician and the prince can't take his life right here. Chen was very angry. He reached out his hand and grabbed Bai by the throat. The prince said rudely, "Baiyu, then there is nothing he dare not do." A girl intervened in the conversation. She told the prince that she was just lost and Bai showed her the way back. After that, the prince threw the royal musician aside with all his might. Chen rudely told musician Bai to stay away from the girl in the future. When the prince and the girl left, the musician rose slowly to his feet and looked after them. Bai thought for a long time about everything that had happened. He didn't understand where this girl had come from. That's when some speculation popped up in royal musician Bai's mind. The prince was ahead of the girl. She asked him not to be angry. She promised she wouldn't run away again. Chen was silent in response. He disliked the girl's behavior very much. The girl came up behind the prince and grabbed his clothes. She wanted him not to be angry. The girl looked at Chen and told him that what she did was wrong and asked him not to be angry. The prince turned around and looked at the girl. He felt a love attraction for her. Chen told the girl reassuringly not to do such a thing again. The girl was very happy. She told the prince that it would never happen again. The prince and the girl met a guy with a fan in his hand. It was General Lin. The guy told Chen that he came to see who the beautiful girl next to him was. At this time, the girl looked at the guy who approached and said hello to him. General Lin was very surprised. He didn't expect to see such a beautiful girl with the prince.